Stop doing conditioning work for jiu-jitsu. You're just wasting your time. Well, that's a heck of a claim. What gives me the right to say that? Let's just think about this. Let's do a thought experiment. You know, because this is the rave. Guys want to do strength and conditioning for jiu-jitsu. Only what it turns into is conditioning and more conditioning. There's actually no strength component to it. All of your efforts off the mat should be hyper-focused on getting stronger and cleaning up asymmetries. Jiu-jitsu is a tough sport. Jiu-jitsu in and of itself is conditioning. I'm going to say that again. Jiu-jitsu in and of itself is conditioning. You don't need more conditioning. You've got that bucket filled. So if you've got that bucket filled, your efforts off the mat should be centered around strength and strength only. Focusing on mobility, recovery. You need to focus on 3 aspects: mobilize, stabilize, strengthen. That's what you need to focus on off the mat, not conditioning. And you might be thinking, well, I'm getting ready to do a tournament. I need to peak my endurance or something. There is something to be said for peaking glycolytically, right? Because jiu-jitsu by its nature is a glycolytic sport. Chasing that's the muscle burn. But here's the thing, what people don't realize, what guys don't realize, is to peak glycolytically for something like jiu-jitsu, you can't peak it through exercise. Kettlebell swings, kettlebell snatches, that's not going to work. Here's why. If you try to peak your endurance, try to boost your endurance for a competition that you've got coming up, or just in general for your jiu-jitsu practice, if you try to do that off the mat, that is an exercise-induced response to improving your endurance. Not going to work. What you need is a hormonal-induced response to peak your endurance. It needs to be specific to the sport. So if you want to peak your endurance for jiu-jitsu, because you're getting ready for a tournament or what have you, it needs to be done on the mat through specific training, through high intense rounds, short rest periods, lots of rounds. And ironically, trying to peak your endurance with snatches or swings or something like that, ironically is a hormonal induced response for peaking snatches and swings, because you're only getting good at that. So if you're trying to do a snatch test, guess what you should be doing? Guess what you should be peaking with? Snatches, because it's specific to the sport. You wouldn't train a different sport, you wouldn't do something else, you wouldn't do barbell deadlifting to peak your snatching. Not going to work. That's the equivalent of trying to use kettlebell snatches or some kind of kettlebell ballistic endurance exercise to boost your endurance for jiu-jitsu. Like, does that even make sense? So to peak your endurance for jiu-jitsu, to get better at your endurance for jiu-jitsu, you need jiu-jitsu. You need a hormonal induced response, that fight or flight. And so if you're struggling to get stronger and better conditioned for jiu-jitsu, stop seeking it through methods off the mat. Your strength training off the mat should be focused on strength, recovery, and longevity.